Hello, everyone, and welcome to the Bollywood Cinema Club, a show where we take a look at Indian cinema every other week. I am the host of the Culture Cast, Chris Stashu, the show where this show spun off from. On this episode of the Bollywood Cinema Club, I'm joined by my good friend. You have heard her here before, all the way from Mondo, Heather. Your friend and mine, Heather Drain.
Hello. Thank you for letting me come back.
Are you bringing the circus with you, Heather?
I am the circus. Are you kidding? I've been called a clown so many times.
Oh, well, speaking of clans, speaking of clowns and sad laughing people, on this episode of the Bollywood Cinema Club, we're taking a look at Cirkus, which is the fifth installment in the Golmaal franchise and a spin-off of Golmaal again, which in and of itself is based on the Comedy of Errors by William Shakespeare. So this movie is based on, let's just say, one of the older texts around as far as most people are concerned. So the film is directed by Rohit Shetty, which is the director for all of the Golmaal films, and it does star Ranveer Singh and Varun Sharma in dual roles as Roy Chauhan and Roy Shenoy, and Joy Chauhan and Joy Shenoy, two sets of twins separated at birth, and then they come back together because one of them is in the circus and the other one. This movie is complicated, folks, almost to the point of being unintelligible, because it does something that a lot of Indian cinema does, which is has an actor play dual roles. We'll talk all about it, because not just one actor's playing dual roles in this film, we have two. So Heather, you and I watched the trailer for this movie. Neither one of us knew anything about it beforehand. Again, it is a standalone movie. It is in the Golmaal franchise, which neither one of us have seen, but it's a standalone story. The Golmaal connection has to do with the kind of stinger at the end of the movie. But all that out of the way, what did you think of 2022's Cirkus?
Well, before I go into what I think of the movie as a whole, I'll go into when you and I watched the trailer together. And which is always like a fun process for this show, because it's, you know, you and I get to kind of explore like new trailers, new films together. And that's a really cool thing that I often don't get with other films. And when we saw the trailer, it's like all these really bright kind of candy colors, like oversaturation. I'm a sucker for a circus scene personally. Like I love like carnivals and circuses. And I was like, and it looked completely different from anything you and I have talked about together on the show. So I was totally game. By the time I finished the movie, it does have the bright colors. I feel like it should have had a different title, because really the circus, the titular circus of it, is very minor, incredibly minor actually, and is really hardly in the movie, which is really disappointing. And to me, it kind of felt like almost sort of like the illegitimate love child of like a Nickelodeon / Disney movie. You know, because it to me, it almost felt like a kid's movie, but yet had these kind of complicated, you know, and the Shakespeare thing makes sense. It also makes sense that no wonder I didn't really care for it, spoiler, because the whole Comedy of Errors brand, I'm not just talking about Shakespeare, just that type of comedy is, I'm not saying I don't like anything that does that, but if you do that, it has to be really, really good for me to get into it. And I don't know, there was just, it felt like the story, just to me, everything like that felt like a first draft. Like I just felt like there should have been like some rewrites, which is something I don't often say about film writings. Usually when we cover films, they're films that have probably been rewritten too much, actually.
Right.
But this one, you know, it's commits the cardinal sin of telling, not showing half the time. Two, which I think also just lends to this like air of just like, huh? It's a very movie. But before I go any deeper, like what was your takeaway?
I don't think I disliked it as much as Mahakal, which I think is still probably the low point of the things we've talked about. I think this movie, Mahakal, was like an hour and 40.
Oh, it was. Yeah, it was a lot longer.
Yeah, I mean, you know, this movie is like 2.5 hours, 2 hours and some change. So I didn't dislike this movie. I think it's a movie that looks better than it looks nice, but everything that it presents is kind of childish to the point of being just not interesting as an adult. Like, I don't know how else, like you mentioned, like, it feels like a kid's movie, but like, I don't think it's meant to be, because there's like plenty of things that kids, quote unquote, would not understand or would not pick up on. And the story that they're telling is not an inherently family or family friendly story, but I guess it is, but it isn't. I mean, movies about twins are a dime a dozen. I mean, Parent Trap, plenty of actors have played two roles before. Fucking Amir Khan did it in Doom 3. And that's the thing. A lot of Indian movies do this. Bahubali did it, where you have Prabhas playing two roles. I mean, I've seen plenty of movies now where it's one actor playing two roles, or one actor playing a older person or an older version of themselves and a younger version, or they're playing their parent. And it's like, now that I kind of understand this and see that this is a common storytelling technique, I think this movie does it poorer than almost every other movie I've seen, because at times it's impossible to tell them apart. And Ranveer Singh, as much as I like him, which I'm a fan of Ranveer Singh because he's fantastic in Gully Boy, why did they have both of the characters have mustache?
I thought that was weird too. I mean, because at least with like the Joy, like his brother character, at least, I mean, it's still the same actor, but at least one of them has like a slightly different mustache. And that's kind of a recurring joke of like, what'd you do to your mustache? But at least with the mustache detail, that's at least slightly like, okay, you can tell them apart a little bit. But with, Ranveer, I mean, granted, I don't want to complain too much about him with that mustache, because I think that was one of the good things about the movie.
He is a good looking man.
And he rocks the stash. Like, woo.
And he has a great screen presence. He really does. Like when he's on 100%. Screen, he's fantastic. It's just, it's not given anything to do. Like really given nothing to do.
Well, and I was frustrated with that because you can tell, like, no, he's not, I mean, he's charismatic, but also I felt like you could tell he was trying to bring like emotionally different qualities to each brother to kind of make them stand out a little bit. Like, I feel like he was doing his due diligence and he was really good. But it's like, you're right. It was like, it felt like this weird in between of being like a children's movie, not like even a tween or a teenage movie, but almost like, because I mean, you have like the head of this orphanage who's the source of this, where he's switched these two sets of twins around as a lesson to exhibit nature versus nurture, because and
because he's a fucking sociopath.
He's a sociopath. I mean, and the movie tries to couch this as like, because he's like, oh, well, people put so much importance on bloodline and religion and caste systems. And I mean, and that's 100% accurate. I mean, but there are better ways to do that than like literally kind of playing God almost with people's lives. And because it's a thing, like the film, I mean, I don't think I'm even spoiling, because this kind of movie, it's not going to have a dark ending. It isn't going to go all Cassavetes on you at the last minute. Okay. This isn't Abel Ferrara's Circus. This is, this is a happy, go lucky movie. But at the end when, they're like, oh my God, I have a twin, I have a brother I didn't know about, and everybody's happy. But their lives, if they hadn't met up, their lives would have been ruined, because both, like, one guy's wife thinks that her husband is cheating on her because she can't have children and she's barren. And then the other one thinks that her man is cheating on her with, the other, it's just stupid. And it's like, if nobody would have remedied this, these guys' lives would have been completely uprooted. And especially with all these people judging them and saying, you're a cad and you're a naughty boy, because they think they're just like philandering all over the place, and they're not. So it's like, this guy's little social experiment could have had some very like fucked up consequences. Also, speaking of that, because the whole thing is like one twin, they do like a Corsican Brothers kind of thing.
Which just came up on our last recording, so I know you must be a huge fan of these setups.
They're the best, yes, and no, they're terrible. And I love Cheech and Chong, but I don't love Cheech and Chong's Corsican Brothers. That's but that whole thing where like if one twin experiences pain, and that movie was the only thing to do that. I think there was a Roger Corman movie. Was it not Warrior Queen? Trying to remember, what are the fantasy early 80s fantasy movies have like two sets of female twins, and it's the same thing where one experiences pain or pleasure, the main one experiencing it doesn't really feel it, but the other one does. And they do that here with one twin becomes like a circus act because he can be electrocuted and suffers no consequences, and the other one dances around like he's got the St. Vitus dance, but he doesn't have any physical. I'm pretty sure if you get electrocuted constantly, can't that kill you? I can kill you, right?
Or kill the people that are touching you, at least. Yeah,
people get electrocuted to death in real life. So it's like, I don't know. and again, this is why it's like, well, this probably isn't maybe meant for kids because you don't want to be telling children like, yeah, go touch that open exposed wire. You'll just dance around and people will laugh and think it's whimsical. But the tone is so. And I don't mind it. There are children's movies that are good that you can watch as an adult and enjoy that are well-made movies. But this film isn't like, it isn't that. And it's also like the music, like they had this candy-coated look. I feel like the music wasn't matching up to the look of it. And the proceedings, while they're silly, it doesn't, there's just like this tonal dissonance almost. Not even tonal, it just doesn't feel, nothing feels cohesive like it should to me in Circus.
Well, and the story is so generic in what it's presenting that, I mean, I was shocked. I mean, the conceit of, oh, he can touch electrical wires and his twin feels it. And his twin doesn't understand why when people touch him, sometimes he is electrocuting them. But it just happens. Like, that's just part of his life. Like, that's interesting. Like, that's an interesting direction to go. But then that ends up just being like a punchline to a bunch of jokes, or this kind of like weird Deus ex machina moment of something bad is about to happen, but then you see it cuts away to his brother getting ready to grab the wires or do an act. And so it's kind of this weird moment of, things are going to work out all of a sudden because he's about to be electrocuted. His brother is. So like whatever's going on in the other guy's life is going to be prevented by no fault of his own or no choice of his own. And like, that's interesting. But then it becomes more about, oh, they all converge on Uti, and in Uti, they're both there. And the one brother lives there and the other one doesn't, but everybody starts recognizing them and thinking it's the other set of brothers. And it's like, well, this goes on for so long.
Way too long.
It goes on essentially up until, and this movie is 138 minutes long. They find out that they're brothers, all four of them. Do you know what minute mark it is? Do you know how many minutes are left in this movie when that happens?
I want to say like 10.
12.
Even that. Yeah.
12
it's
minutes.
Ridiculous.
Like, what? You spend all of the movie going, oh, there's these machinations happening and they're unable to figure out why they're being recognized as other people. And isn't that weird? And the characters are acting like complete morons to the point where they're just like going along with it. They're like, oh, this is weird, but maybe these people here are weird. Like, it's like Brad and Janet in Rocky Horror. Maybe they do a little bit more folk dancing. Like, that's what it feels like. It's just so strange because I don't think they inherently have a bad setup for this movie. I think everything that comes after the setup of, I swapped these twins, I want to see how their lives turn out, and one of them has essentially a superpower, and the other one doesn't understand why it's manifesting the way that it is an interesting setup. It just fucking goes nowhere. And it's a frustration, frankly, because Ranveer Singh is fantastic in given what he's given to do, which is very little. And I have not seen Varun Sharma in a lot, if anything else. And I really like him too. He plays a really interesting kind of straight man to Ranveer Singh's character, straight man to one of them, and more the comedic character to the other. I really appreciated that. I appreciate the two of them, and their chemistry is great. Everything else in the movie is just kind of all over the place. Like Sanjay Mishra's character of Rai Bahadur, the father of Bindu, is what a bizarre character. Like,
he grated on me, and I don't even feel like, I almost don't want to hate the actor because I feel like that character was written to be like that, and I feel like that's he's
from the Golmaal movies, so I don't know if he got famous from the Golmaal films, which is what this is part of. So okay. I don't know. Again, I don't want to, and I don't want to speak to it because I don't know. This may be kind of his shtick.
Okay.
So I don't know. It kind of feels like it's, what it feels like when Johnny Lever was in Mahakal. It's like, this is like another character from something else that you're maybe doing your own thing in this movie that you're known for. I mean, Johnny Lever is in this movie, and we'll talk about that. But
well, we actually, let's go ahead and get to Johnny right now because first of all, the actor they cast to play his son does look a lot like a young Johnny Lever. Like,
I was surprised he's not his actual son.
Legit. Now, because I looked up the credits after watching it because I was convinced. I'm like, I almost was like, at one point, is this some deep fake shit? Like, what is going on? But it's like, no, it's an actual actor who just happens to kind of look like Johnny Lever, Johnny Lever's a very striking person. I find that good casting.
Siddhartha Jadhav has the teeth gap from birth.
He's so Lever adjacent. I think Johnny Lever is funnier because I think there are parts of him in Mahakal that I found charming. And in fact, he was one of the few bright spots for me in that movie, even though he kind of grated after a while. But again, that wasn't his fault. That was that movie's fault. But I noticed something similar to Mahakal is the weird Michael Jackson audio stings. Did you notice that with his son?
Yeah.
Because you'd hear this like, and it was real subtle, but you'd hear like, duh, 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 ch, like, like that. And then, whoo, like.
There were some weird like audio stingers throughout this movie. It felt very much like a Indian cinema movie made in the early 2000s, like Doom. In Doom, there's like these doom, like when a character turns around or something. These like, and like I can't even think of a comparison in American cinema. They don't do that. Like, and I don't think it's a good or a bad thing. Like sometimes it works, like in Doom, and other times it's just like goo goo gaga noises in this movie. It really feels like two people offset going pew pew pew, bing bang, ow. Like it's strange because again, the movie wants to be that, but I don't think it has any idea how to go about it. I feel like it doesn't maybe go far enough with the madcap zaniness, but I don't know what that would look like because there are scenes of it. Like there's a scene at Roy One's house where they're, Johnny Lever adjacent, the Momo is his character's name, Siddhartha Jadhav's character in the movie. It's him and his gang, Mongo and Cheeky, and great names, by the way. And they're all there in Roy One's house with Roy 2 there in Roy One's place. And there's this like slapstick scene and it's just like goes on for forever. Mm-hmm. It goes on so long that it stops being funny after the 5-minute mark. And it's like sometimes more is not better. And in this scenario, barely any might have been just enough because nothing that they're doing slapstick comedy wise or physical comedy wise is funny. It keeps going back to, like you mentioned, Ranveer Singh just doing that over and over again, which, I mean, it can only be funny so many times. Like the first couple times, maybe. But like you can't keep doing it and expecting that all the comedy that you're doing is going through that one joke and it's going to land, because it doesn't. And it's almost always that joke recurring in some different scenario.
Yeah. Well, it's something you and I have talked about before, too, is, there are some movies that are really long that would benefit from being a lot shorter. And it's not, obviously, we're doing the show. I mean, most Bollywood movies are well over 2 hours. Every film that you and I have talked about on the show has been well over 2 hours. In fact, two of our most favorite ones were almost 3. So we're obviously not anti length if it merits it and if it's really good. But this is a movie, cut it to 90 minutes and you might have something. Like this film is way too long. It gets way too convoluted. If we're trying to be as like zany and like weird, it's not, it falls really short for me. And also, why is it called Circus? I wanted more circus in it. It's like calling a movie like The Candy Maker, and the Candy Maker's in the movie for 10 minutes.
It's like calling a film Yellowbeard and he's only in it a couple times.
I was trying to avoid the Yellowbeard because it's a different podcast, but you're right.
But that's where this podcast comes from, so...
Exactly. I mean, actually, we got more Yellowbeard and Yellowbeard than we do Circus and Circus.
Well, the only circus in this movie is Ranveer Singh's character, who is again, like the amazing electric man. He just also happens to run the circus. Mm-hmm. So
he owns it, and we hardly see any clowns. We don't see any little people. We don't see any bearded ladies.
We don't see anything.
In the 50s, there's be freaks in this one. Come on, like, give me Todd Browning Circus, damn it. I want.
Well, and I get hewing close to something like Shakespeare because we can all understand Shakespeare. It's like the base story elements for stories told from here until the end of time. But like, I am with you. I'm not a Shakespeare person. I'm just not, and really not this kind of stuff. Like I can fuck with some Hamlet soliloquies. I can get down with that because that for me is interesting because that kind of scratches the same itch of watching actors do really interesting monologues. Like that's what the soliloquies for Hamlet scratch for me. But the comedy of errors shit, like I read Midsummer Night's Dream earlier this year. Blech. Like gross. I'm sorry. Like I'm just sorry. Like I wish it resonated with me in a way that I could say, oh my God, I'm such a fan of these characters and of this story. And I read it and I thought, yeah, this is the kind of stuff I don't like from Shakespeare. Yeah, like I'd like Julius Caesar. Hamlet's fine. Macbeth is fine. This, yeah, couldn't care less.
No, I'm not a fan of comedies either.
Well, what is there to be a fan of, really? Like, oh, it's like it's almost adjacent to those like movies where you're like, just fucking say it to each other, right? It's like the missed connection comedy where it's like one person, there's two people in a room and they're in love, but the one person just can't say it to the other one. Or if they do, they're like, no, I don't love you. It's like that kind of stuff where it's like, again, a comedy of errors. And it's like, I'm not into that. It's not something I want to be part of as a viewer, watching all these characters just kind of be dumb, because that's kind of what it feels like.
Oh, exactly. Well, and it's, where's the comedy? If it's a comedy of errors, I didn't laugh. I didn't even chortle. It's frustrating. On top of that, there is a way to do a little bit of that well, because when we did Muthu, you had a little bit of that, but the whole film wasn't based on, oh no, his master's in love with the same girl and there's a misunderstanding. The misunderstanding happens midway. Like they get that over with so they can proceed with the bigger plot. And that's also a smart way to do it. Muthu was also a much better movie and was a film that had a sense of the whimsical in a way that really was woven in well. I mean, there was some total whiplash in the movie, but that all kind of lended to it. It all lended to the bigger picture, where with Circus, it's just they're trying, and obviously they worked really hard on the visuals look of it. But to me, it's almost like it's so sanitized more than it is, like Technicolor pop art fun, like it should be.
Yeah. I agree 100%. And, the other kind of big sin that the movie commits is having two female actors in it who are given nothing to do. Like Jacqueline Fernandez and Pooja Hegde are given nothing to do in any 2.5 hour movie. They just have to act angry in every scene that they're in. And they're given, none of the characters are really given any characterization. I mean, the fact that, again, Ranveer Singh and Varun Sharma are playing 4 characters together, 2 each, they don't even stand out as distinct characters. All I can say is one of them has electricity powers and the other one feels it, and one has a mustache and the other one doesn't. Like that's really as much characterization as we're given, and for the female characters we're given even less, and it's crazy to me because this is a 2.5 hour.
Right. Well, and especially because with Mala, the most we really get of her is like, oh, she wants a baby, which is like the most generic thing you can assign to any female character. Is like, I want to be a mother, and there's nothing wrong with wanting to be a mother. That could be a beautiful thing, but there's more to being a woman. And also the fact that we do know that she's this novelist who is very successful writing under like a masculine pen name. But to me, that's like, that character has so much potential with that. Like, obviously there's depth to her that we're not really shown. And again, it's like, if you want to be like a kids film where there's not, kids films because have depth, but if you want to be a film that's just more wacky and zany and it's not about character depth so much, that's fine, but commit to that. But you can't really go both ways. You can't have nature versus nurture and social experiments. And also these plots that are basically like people being hurt because they think there's infidelity and there's bad communication, but then be like, oh, it's wacky. And, it doesn't, the shit doesn't merge. It doesn't merge. It's like you're mixing vegetable oil with your Kool-Aid. You're not going to make a good punch with that.
And I feel like there are plenty of opportunities in this movie to have gone those directions that we were expecting. And again, it's not really our expectations getting in the way of liking this movie. This movie is critically reviled. Like, go read any of the reviews for this movie, and they hold back even less than we are. And again, it's also coming from a place of, we've seen all of Rohit Shetty's other movies, and this is a pale comparison to those kinds of films, like Golmaal, which Golmaal sounds like a lot of fun. Like, it's got Ajay Devgan in it. It is a movie that is made a lot of money when it came out. A lot of people went and saw it. It has like 5 fucking sequels. That sounds interesting. maybe not Golmaal 4 and 5, but the first one. I mean, we haven't seen, and again, this is the thing that, you kind of mentioned at the top of this. You haven't seen a comedy yet. This is the first comedy we've watched, and it wasn't funny. It wasn't like the biggest sin that this movie commits is not being funny when it's, again, comedy, quote unquote, inspired by comedy of errors. Like, where, how, make me laugh, please do something funny. Like, I can't understand if they thought what they were doing was enough or if they figured somehow that wasn't what you're expecting from this kind of movie. Because here's the thing, like, I haven't seen a lot of Indian comedies, so maybe this is the way that they all are, but reading the reviews would lead me to believe that's not the case. This is some sort of weird aberration.
Yeah. Also, I'm still stuck on your review of The Merchant of Venice. Just one word. Gross.
Hey, I just
love that.
There's just not, sometimes Shakespeare is just,
or no, it was Midsummer's Night Dream.
Right, Midsummer Night Dream. I don't understand the appeal of Shakespeare. Was not, he was a witty guy, but I don't think he was as funny as he thought he was with the stuff he was writing narratively. He had some good lines that make me laugh, but like, I just don't understand, like, that kind of comedy is just not, I don't know, wasn't for me. Maybe I'm missing the point. Maybe that's what it is.
I'm not a fan of that comedy either. Like the Meet the Fockers, was that awful Ben Stiller movie? I didn't actually see it, so maybe I shouldn't say that. Like Meet the Parents, that kind. I don't even know if that's really under this umbrella, but anything where it's like, oh, see, it's wacky, there's misunderstandings, and I don't know. Give me a good Marx Brothers movie. Give me the Marx Brothers. Don't give me Merchant of Venice or whatever, or Taming of the Shrew. I do like Shakespeare, but yeah, I like the ones that are just kind of dark and violent and nihilistic, like Titus Andronicus, Julius Caesar. I did like. I thought Hamlet was a little whiny.
Oh, if Hamlet doesn't exist, we don't get the thing that I really love that Shakespeare didn't write, but it's Shakespeare is Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are dead.
Oh, I do love that.
Right. Agreed. So Hamlet has to exist, unfortunately, for something as subversive and transgressive as Rosencrantz and Guildenstern to exist.
So good. And the movie's so good. The play and the movie.
Yeah. Agreed. And that's how you do funny within the same sphere of Shakespeare. That's how you do funny. It's just characters kind of not being self-aware, but being self-aware of their place in the world. And when you have a movie like this, where it's like, we don't know who we are, it's weird that the characters are never really asking that, because that's not like Ranveer Singh's character never says at any point, is it possible that I was adopted and I have a twin brother? Like at one point, Varun Sharma says something to him like that. And he's like, no. Like, wait, what? Like, how could you explain any of this away without that being the case? It's so fucking bizarre that like the characters don't even want to acknowledge the idea that maybe they do have doppelgangers in Uti by complete accident, by no fault of their own.
There are so many issues. Because when a film, because that's the thing, I don't hate this movie. I didn't like it. Hate is a strong word. Hate, for me to really hate something, it's usually going to be something where I feel like absolute bare minimum effort was placed in, like the cocky sway of a Michael Bay. That might irritate me just because it's like, yeah, we're just going to do a bunch of jump cuts and, make it 2.5 hours long of bad CGI. You sheep will come and feed from the trough kind of attitude. That will irritate me and anger me a little bit. I'm not anger, but it's just bullshit. It's gross. I don't hate this movie because I feel like there were people that definitely put in like an effort. I mean, certainly the cast. And Ranveer's great in it. Oh, that scene where he winks with that mustache, that was my favorite part for the record. Such a
You should watch Gully Boy. He's really good in Gully Boy. He plays a aspiring rapper in Mumbai.
Oh my God.
Imagine 8 Mile. Imagine 8 Mile, but good. Well, I'm sorry. I don't find Eminem to be particularly interesting as an actor.
I don't find him to be particularly charismatic either. So,
but you can tell Ranveer Singh is.
Hell yeah. But with movies like this, I'm like, what should have been done differently? And I think the 3 things that would have made this better. 1, rewrite that script, trim it down, eliminate half of the father-in-law trying to trip up the son, because that was all over the place.
Happens 3 times in the fucking movie. 3 separate times. And maybe the first time is funny, But the second and third time, which end up being longer each time, progressively longer, no. It's just like, it's too much.
It's redundant. It's just, we keep it, there are points in this film where you almost feel like you're in a Mobius strip because it's the same over and over. So trim that down significantly. Figure out who your audience is. You know, you can make something. I'm not saying everything has to be like De Palma's Scarface, okay? But, you know, if they're going to have constant jokes about infidelity and obvious like hints were, you know, about sexuality, which is fine, but then you have it feel like, you know, Hannah Montana, the preteen years as far as tone. That's, you know what I mean? Like, it's weird. So figure that out. And more Circus. Oh, and the other thing, I think the music to me felt really anemic. There isn't a lot of it. A film that looks like this, we should have had some lavish, epic Bollywood musical numbers. We should have had some great, badass musical numbers in this film with all of the visuals. And I just felt like I didn't think the music itself was that great. I didn't think the musical numbers as a whole were really that great either. And there really wasn't like a ton of them.
Current Laga Ray, the song that Deepika Padukone shows up for, the kind of, I would say, the big song in the movie, is just okay. It's fine. It's like not memorable at all. It's not like the main song from Patan. It's not like, God, it's not even like the song from Ishq where Amir Khan is dancing down the bridge. I mean, again, a movie where like the songs maybe don't need to be there in a lot of ways because it's more kind of an action adjacent movie. You're right. Like, there's more music in Baz Luhrmann's Elvis than there is in this movie. And again, like, I say Baz Luhrmann because I've been trying to rack my brain to find like a close approximation of what a Indian cinema film would look like through a more Western lens. And I think Baz Luhrmann's pretty close. Like, he's just kind of all over the place in the best way, and tone and substance mattered less than showing something interesting, which is the assumption about Indian cinema. It's not the case, but this movie almost feels like what you would assume an Indian cinema movie is going to be like, and then it ends up just being boring instead. Like, the promise of fun is never fulfilled, but the trailer made it look like it was going to be this grand old return to the classic ways of Indian cinema where there was, like we've mentioned, big, bright colors, men with mustaches, dressing in very vibrant garb. I mean, all of that feels very much a return to a different time in storytelling in Indian cinema. And it's not even that. It's not even this like pared down old style way of making movies, which is kind of what I was hoping it would be, like a kind of a hearkening back to the old golden age of cinema. And it's not even that. It's just, again, it doesn't know what it wants to be. And in a world of Indian cinema where you're competing with like so many movies, I think in the Romantics, one of the actresses mentioned like 800 movies come out a year in India. Like, that's a lot of movies to compete with. And this is on Netflix right alongside Triple R and Bahubali and a bunch of other movies that are so much better. It's almost hard to even say, check this movie out, because I would rather just say, go watch Gully Boy if you're going to watch something that has Ranveer Singh in it. That is, again, just a Ranveer Singh performance. That's just him carrying the movie. Gully Boy, fantastic. This movie, it's just like, well, how do you waste Ranveer Singh's time? It's such a shame because he's so charismatic.
Oh, he's by far the best part of this movie. You know what this actually makes me think of is, there's the classic musical, The Music Man with Robert Preston. And that movie's great. Robert Preston's amazing. And 20, 30 years later, ABC, I think, did a TV movie version of it. And if you compare the two, it's just like the latter just feels anemic. Like, you can see that they're trying to do some callbacks. And some of the cast, I mean, they got really talented people like Kristen Chenoweth's in it. They got, the problem number one is they got Matthew Broderick, who I'm not. Yeah. And I'm not anti-Broderick necessarily, but if you see Robert Preston's work and then you see Matthew Broderick, Preston was this great big, just had this great big energy about him and this smile. And like, he's so good at Victor Victoria too, which is another movie I love. And Broderick, to me, again, just anemic. Just, you can't, and he's good in certain ways, but in a way, it's like, this is what Circus was for me. I feel like it was calling back to something older and better and more expertly made. that I'd rather be watching. And it sounds so mean, and I hate being mean, but it's just some films get critically lambasted that really shouldn't be. Like when we did Thugs of Hindustan, I had really enjoyed that movie. You know, I wouldn't. I mean, is it perfect? No, most things aren't though. It's okay. I was entertained. I thought it did its job. I enjoyed it. I would recommend it, and I did. I think we did on the episode. This one, I get it. This is one where, okay, it got bad reviews, and, you know, you can see why. It's just like it's half, there's something just so half finished about it. And it's too bad because obviously a lot of money and effort, you know, went into it.
I mean, that's the one thing I can't lambast the movie for, is it's not bad to look at. I know it feels like I know where a lot of the time and effort went. Maybe there should have been more time and effort into the script.
Yes.
Because the production values are clearly, there's no issue with that. Like the movie's really nice to look at, but that is not enough. Like even Baz Luhrmann's stuff is nice to look at, but there's more to it. I mean, something I'm not a huge fan of, Moulin Rouge, like it's a lot going on, but at the same time, like there is a story there, even if it is bombarding you constantly with just things to see, which this movie kind of does the same. I mean, at one point we see like a 10-foot tall Ranveer Singh just like standing there. And it's the moment where I think Roy 1 realizes who Roy 2 is, or I guess Roy 2 realizes who Roy 1 is. And it should be like this big moment, and it just falls flat. Like everything in this movie just falls so flat. And I'm disappointed because now this is the second Indian cinema movie we've watched together that has not been good.
Which is true. But I think in a way that's something that's kind of good, because think about it, like you and I mean, you have the Culture Cast, and we've been on other podcasts where we're talking about all kinds of Western cinema. And you and I have been doing that gig for years, right? And for years and years. A lot of years, actually. Like, damn, Chris, we could have had, like, you know, a child that would probably resent us by now. What, like, you know, we could, you know, either one of us at this point would have had like a little 12-year-old that'd be like, you know, fuck you, dad, or you're not my real mom. But I don't know where I'm going with that. But my point is, part of the joy of being a cinephile in that journey is not everything's going to be good.
Right.
And that's why I'm glad we did talk about Cirkus, because that is the reality of the movie going experience. If every single film that we watch was Agnipath, you know,
yeah,
that would be amazing. Actually, never mind, scratch that. I'm full of shit.
I mean, I was to say, if everything we watched was Agnipath, I would be okay with that.
I would too. But objectively, sometimes it's watching stuff that's mediocre that actually kind of helps you really learn about filmmaking and the language of film. In some ways, maybe even more than the really great films, because you can do the compare and contrast. And you can also be like, okay, I didn't like this, but why? It makes you kind of do a little bit of self-searching of like, why? Even with some stuff that people love. I mean, like, there are people... I know for Culture Cast did Forrest Gump recently, and that's a film that some people really enjoy and love, obviously. Others, like myself, am not the biggest fan of it, to say the least. But I love that. I think that's all part of the healthy discussion. So I'm glad, even though neither one of us liked it, I'm glad we watched it. I'm glad we discussed it. Now, do I hope that the next film you and I do for BCC is takes our breath away because it's so good? Of course. Nobody wants to actively go into something and hate it. But that's okay. That is part of the journey of life. Not every sandwich is going to make a memory. That's great. Some sandwiches are going to make that memory of complete dysentery. I'm not saying this film was complete dysentery. Mahakal was close.
Mahakal was a much worse film than this one, because it felt like it was a waste of time. Like it felt really, what's the word? It felt like it was existing solely to plagiarize something much better. Like it was a ripoff, and that's the thing. In the most like fucking obvious sense of the word.
Not inspired. And that's the thing. I think a lot of Westerners, especially, that just assume if you see an Indian film or a Turkish film, you know, or an Italian film inspired by something else, oh, it's a ripoff. Well, it depends on what kind of care went into, what kind of influence. Everything's influenced by something. I mean, if you didn't have Joseph Campbell the writer philosopher, you don't have Star Wars.
Right.
You know, and some could say, oh, that storyline's ripping off Joseph Campbell, like in his philosophy with Star Wars. And in a way, you're kind of right, but it's not, I wouldn't call it a ripoff. Yeah, you could have Orca, which I'm not saying Orca is a masterpiece, but we wouldn't have Orca without Jaws. But Orca's its own movie. And it's amazing because the killer whale goes after Richard Harris. That's a whole other podcast. I'm sorry, but it is really amazing. I think the only thing we've watched that I would even dare to call ripoff would be Mahakal, because it's basically crudely put together. There wasn't really a lot of care and creativity put into it, as opposed to Agnipath, which clearly has a lot of influences from other movies, but is its own beast because all of that care and talent and intelligence went into it. I wish Circus would have had that. There's so much potential. You're right. Like, the seeds of this plot could potentially be, I think, a really great story. And if, please, if it's going to be called Circus, give me some circus folk. I saw, we don't even see a close-up of clowns. We get 2 clowns in the background. That's bullshit. This is a circus. Where are my clowns at?
I mean that I think is it's a cardinal sin of this movie. Is it promises a lot of things from the title to the trailer that it's never going to deliver on, and it knows that, but you don't. And I'm not going to say it's deceptive advertising, but kind of felt like it a little bit. Like, the movie is just so bland compared to how exciting the trailer is. And look, there's plenty of that going around. This movie is not the first, last, or only. It's one of many, probably last films that came out last year even, that were not what they were advertising. So again, like, it's just, you hate to see this many fantastic actors being wasted this criminally, frankly. Mm-hmm. So.
Oh, 100%. Also, I don't know if this is a hot take. I didn't like Moulin Rouge to the point where I never finished it.
I didn't like it either. So
I just couldn't get through it. And I love musicals, but not unconditionally. Maybe that's part of it too. I'm very picky with what musicals I like, but I love almost every musical we've talked about for this show. Really the only things we've watched that I would not recommend anybody is this and Mahakal. I feel like everything else we've watched, some things are better than others, but all of it's been really good. It's been, really good to great. In fact, the law of averages, Chris, if we've only had 2 stinkers out of like several titles at this point, that's not bad, man. We've done far worse on other podcasts.
Well, and I don't look at the reviews before I pick the movies. I'm not picking only good movies either. So, I mean, these are movies that I've wanted to watch or I've seen trailers for, and then float it to certain people. And if they want to do it, great. So if it's good or bad, I kind of don't want to know until after I've watched it, kind of what the critical consensus. And I have, we have the reviews, and then I do have some friends I grew up with in North Texas that are Pakistani or Indian or a variation of maybe even Bengali. And I always ask them their thoughts too about these movies. Because again, I want to know how it's being perceived by the audience it's ostensibly being made for as well. Because that's something that I can't ever really be part of, because we are, again, always going to be Westerners watching these movies. No matter how much we appreciate them, no matter how much we like them, we are always going to be watching it as someone who is not directly part of the culture. And the people who are part of the culture are saying this movie's not good. So I think we're in the same ballpark here as everybody else. So it's a shame, because I really like Ranveer Singh. And I wish that this movie had been a better Ranveer Singh movie, because I feel like the thirstiness for Ranveer Singh would be increased even more, because he has a movie coming out later this year, Rocky Aur Rani Ki Prem Kahani, which is the love story of Rocky and Rani. And he is playing the main character. And it's Karan Johar. So there's no way it's not going to be great. Also, wanted to mention to you, Ranveer Singh is married to Deepika Padukone, the woman who is in Pink in the current Jog Ray song. So that's his real life wife as well. So,
that's so sweet.
Yeah. And what a gorgeous couple, my Lord.
Oh, that's almost sickening. How are these people real? How are they so gorgeous? The both of them. Like
yeah.
You wake up looking like that? Shut up.
Yeah. Imagine what you look like after getting the makeup on, right? Jesus. Yeah.
if I was her, I'd be like, that mustache, like that's a mustache daddy right there.
Sometimes he has the mustache with a little curl in it too.
Oh, cute. Yeah, because I especially most people cannot, in my opinion, rock a mustache. A mustache, I think, is a very difficult thing to pull off personally, because we've all seen bad mustaches. We've all seen guys that have awkward stashes, and it's just like,
I am one of those people.
Have you had an awkward stash?
Yeah, I had an awkward mustache when I went on my honeymoon with my wife, and I had a mustache beard combination thing last year.
Oh, wow.
I had it was like this. Like if I have the I'm going for the audio medium here. If I have the mustache and the goatee like this, but not, I don't have the connected part, but I kind of have this, it looks a little interesting. But if I just do the mustache, I cannot pull it off at all. My dad, on the other hand, I've never seen my father's upper lip bare. He has had a mustache from the day I was born.
Oh, wow. That's the same thing with my stepdad, aka my pappy. As I call him, my pappy.
Good old pappy.
Yeah, because he's always had a stash, but it's just part of him. It just works. But
I mean, I also look like my dad, and if my dad shaved his mustache, he would look much younger, which I think some people are not a fan of looking younger. They want to look distinguished and kind of paternal, I guess. Mm-hmm. So
I'm a man.
Yeah, I'm a man. Don't make me shave my mustache. But I mean, my dad doesn't sound like that. If he did, that my dad would be working in the talkies for a living.
The talkies.
But yeah, very few people can pull off a goddamn mustache. That is a fact of nature.
100%. It's the Ranveer Singh.
Oh yeah.
Oh hell yeah. Hell yeah.
He's a good looking man. I mean, look, again, we've talked about this every time we get together to do one of these. Indian cinema is not short, good looking people. It's not.
Oh, it doesn't matter, if you love beautiful women, you love beautiful men, you love beautiful people in general. Welcome to Bollywood cinema, because it is, if you're having a day where you might feel like a gremlin, maybe watch another country cinema, because
you can help yourself out of that situation.
Oh my God. It's like, just like, oh God, I thought it looked pretty until I watched this movie, and all the women are just like goddesses. And then, but that's okay, because then we can look at like Amir Khan or Ranveer Singh or, and then it's like, oh, okay. I'm just
now you get it, Heather. Yeah. Now you understand. It's like, I want you to watch a Ranveer Singh movie. It doesn't even have to be good though.
I do love that when he's the circus Roy, he his costume has no sleeves, just so you can show them guns.
Those big old guns. When seductively grabbing those electrical wires.
The movie needed a shot of the women just kind of like blushing in the audience. Like, right? I know they're going to be a little demure than the ladies in the southern region of the United States, where it's going to be like, woo! Like wolf
every fucking time.
But at the very least, one of them may be fanning themselves, like that's
just something. Put something in there that shows that anybody but us is supposed to care. Because please, like, it's just it's a lot of missed opportunities. So Heather, final thoughts on Cirkus, which you can find right now on Netflix, mind you. You can find this on Netflix. So this is a movie easily attainable for anyone listening to this if you want to watch it.
How come the movies that we love the most aren't the most easily accessible? Because Agnipath is on Netflix, and then they literally took it off right as we recorded that episode.
Literally the same day.
Yeah, but this is available. So thanks, Netflix. Thanks for nothing, jerks. But anyways, my final thoughts. If you're a Ranveer Singh completist, watch it, because he is, like we have gushed, like he is phenomenal in it. The rest of the cast, I think, do their best, are good. It's not, none of the problem are the actors, I think, in this. But otherwise, I think you could just skip it. There are better circus movies. There are better romantic comedies. There's better kids movies. There's better musicals. There's certainly better Indian films. There's better film in general. You won't really be missing out that much if you don't watch it. I feel so mean. I hate being so negative.
I'm with you. Like, I feel bad, but like at the same time, it is 2.5 hours. And there are plenty of, like you've mentioned, good 2.5 hour Indian cinema films that the two of us have watched together, like Agnipath, like Ishq, like God, I'm trying to think.
Oh, Muthu.
Muthu. Yeah, I mean, frankly, any of them but Mahakal were fantastic. So I don't know. It's so strange because the promise of what this movie was going to be feels like it was just, they missed it from like the first 10 minutes in, and you're sitting for 2 hours and some change going, when are we going to get back to the funny stuff, or maybe exciting stuff? Or again, the promise is there in the first 10 minutes and it goes nowhere. And it's a shame. But hey, again, like you mentioned, we need to watch the not great movies to appreciate the better ones that much more. So, and it makes me appreciate Gully Boy that much more, because again, Ranveer Singh can carry a poor movie as well as he can carry a really fantastic movie. So there you go.
Absolutely.
So until the next time you and I do one of these, Heather, which sooner rather than later, I'm sure, where can people find you on the internet?
You can find me over at my website, mondoheather.com. I'm also on Instagram and Twitter under Aska Shakya at Mondo Heather, and I have a Patreon. So if you're a fan of my writings and ramblings and assorted thoughts and whimsies, please feel free to support me. But if you can't, that's cool too. You can always go to my website. And also, please support Chris and Weirding Way Media in general.
I was about to say, that's where you can find this show, weirdingwaymedia.com, for all your audio needs in regards to audio entertainment needs, because it's not a podcast, it's audio entertainment. We don't say podcasts on these shows. We're like the WWE. We don't mention what we actually do. It's audio entertainment.
We are not podcasters. We are audio entertainers.
Right, exactly. You can find all that at weirdingwaymedia.com. As for this show, BollywoodCinemaClub.com. Like, rate, and review the show wherever you get it. And reach out on YouTube, because people are interacting with the YouTube versions of the podcast and telling us to watch things. Some of the things we have already watched, and I'm always looking for suggestions because, hey, you guys know more than I do, and I know a lot. So that must mean you guys know a lot too. So please tell me things you want us to watch, because I am all ears, folks, because I want to hear what you guys like, because my opinion isn't the only one that matters. Shocking, I know. I left the ego at the door. And as always, Heather, thank you so much for joining me.
Thank you. No, always a pleasure.
And we'll catch you on the next episode.